Way to the weekend, they always say on radio stations, right? We won't say that, though. I'm Gary Sutton. Great to have you aboard with me, and WSBA News Time is 10:06. President Obama ready to make a big speech today. He was also talking yesterday a little bit about the economy. Let's listen to what he had to say before we get in here with Clark Hodges.
We have to consider this a year of action, not just to grow the economy, not just to increase GDP, not just to make sure that corporations are profitable and the stock market's doing well and the financial system is stable. We've also got to make sure that that growth is broad-based and that everybody has a chance to access that growth and take advantage of it. Everybody has a chance to access that growth. With us this morning is Clark Hodges. Clark is a financial strategist at Hodges Capital. I'll bet you think he might be related to the guy that founded that. You would probably be right. Good morning, Clark. How you doing?
I am related to that guy. This is what I sound like when I've been awake more than 10 minutes.
So a little slap at the old show, huh, when I had to get you up at 5 in the morning. You're down in Dallas, Texas, for those who don't know. And now we actually have him up at a decent time here. You're at, what, 9 o'clock now so for you, or a little bit after?
I've got a suit on. I'm in an office. You know, it's a whole different field.
Yeah, you sound just totally different, like more in control of yourself, really. I just, it's a whole new Clark Hodges. Anyway, you heard the president say this is a big year of action, and we got to get into all kinds of things, and we got to help make sure everybody can access the economy. I was sitting here, you know, I have a tendency to do code speak on a lot of things, and I thought, a year of action. The one thing he didn't leave out was a year that I've got to save my butt and legacy as well. But he didn't say that, obviously. And but I'm wondering if maybe it crossed his mind somewhere, because not a lot has been done in the last couple of years. What were your thoughts as you heard the president say that?
Right. I think he's weak on the economy, and I think he knows it, and I think he knows it's an election year for the Democrats,
right?
Possibly in trouble in the Senate. And so, you know, personally, I think when a president basically is taking credit for the stock market, that's a bad sign to me, because he is just pandering for votes right there, yeah. I think. And I'm skeptical, too, of his motives. But, you know, his policies don't jive with what he's saying, because if he wants everybody to access this good economy, then he needs to get rid of Obamacare, because the costs are going up for everybody there.
Right.
And he needs to keep the minimum wage where it is, because all that's going to do is cause people to lay off minimum wage workers, because they're not going to not run a profitable business, and that's what's going to happen. People are going to get laid off.
Well, when you always say that the small business is the backbone of America, and then you heap more regulations on them, that certainly is not helping the economy, and it doesn't allow those people to access. Although I always think that in the back of my mind, again, code speak, that he's not talking to middle-class America. He's not talking to the people in America who are employers and creating jobs. He's talking to people who are going to be dependent voters on him. And maybe I'm being too harsh, and if I am, I apologize. But it just seems to me that he's not talking to those people and doesn't understand that if those people don't make the country go, then other people aren't going to have jobs to go to.
Yeah, well, I'll say it. He's talking to the welfare state. I mean, he's talking to the people out there that are not employed, that are living on welfare, but still go out and vote. And you know, I go back to when he won the election. I never listened to Rush Limbaugh, but I heard him say this, and I agree with it. You're not going to vote out of office Santa Claus, and that's basically how a lot of people are viewing him subconsciously, I think.
You also talked about the idea of, okay, I think what the president said on its face is a good thing. I think everybody ought to be able to access the economy. And I think that, you know, probably less is better, but I don't think that his particular way that he wants to govern is going to fit that. However, I also think that when you say you want everybody to access, then mean it. And don't just go to the welfare state. When you say you want everybody to access, well, the way to access is to make sure that you have, you know, periods and exclamation points at the end of the economic sentences so people can budget. And I look, for example, at the problems that we're having with the Middle East, and we're going to continue to have. And I wonder, geez, we always talk about trying to be independent of them in terms of energy. What about, and you're in an oil country, the Keystone XL pipeline? That could be approved. That could end up maybe being helpful to us, create jobs. We hear about 20 to 40,000 jobs. would also help us to have oil coming down from Canada that would help us, and at the same time, put a little period at the end of the economic sentence, huh?
Right. You need to act. You need to put policies in place that put the economy first. And this whole pipeline situation shows me that he's putting the environment and the politicians first. And that's, where I have a problem with his words, because his words contradict. Everybody should be able to go out and grab a piece of this pie. But I disagree when it's the philosophy is everybody should be able to grab a piece or be given a piece. And that's where I draw the line.
Is it still a land of promise? I know you're a guy that's pretty upbeat normally and pretty positive. Is it still a land of opportunity, or has that closed in a little bit?
Oh, I think it's still a wonderful land of opportunity, because what our economy is about to go through in the next 10 years is the wave of entrepreneurship that was forced upon a lot of people to go out and start their own businesses because they were laid off. They're highly educated, highly motivated people that went through the 08 recession, got laid off, and they looked themselves in the mirror and said, what am I going to do to make it? I'm going to start my own business. And you're going to see a lot of mergers and acquisitions, and you're going to hear a lot of good stories of people who started businesses, and they're up and running right now, maybe very, very small. We don't know about them yet. But those are the businesses that are going to affect our economy in the next 5 to 10 years.
One of the narratives that you're hearing politicians talking about, and particularly Democratic politicians starting the new year, is this gulf between the rich and the poor. Not only are they saying it now for the United States, but they're saying it internationally, that it's the greatest problem in the world right now, that this is the biggest global risk that we have. Do you buy into that?
No, and I'm glad you brought that up, because this week I was talking to my dad, a 79-year-old man who's built a business and done really well for himself. And he said, he was talking about this exact topic with me, and he said there was a guy in his small hometown. He grew up in a Canadian Texas, 2,500 people. And he said, look, if you took all the money in the city and you distributed it equally to everybody, in 2 years, the same people who have money today would have it, and the same people who don't have money today wouldn't have it. So the habits of the people would still be the same, and they would spend and spend and spend and lose it all, and the habits of the people who have the money, who save and save and save, would have more of it. And I think that's a great statement to put over that argument, because redistribution of wealth doesn't work.
Well, the other thing, too, is if you look at it from this standpoint, people who have the money have ownership. People who are getting the money have rentership, don't they?
Exactly. The basis of our business, we invest in stocks. We own something. And we believe that to create wealth in this country, you have to own something. And you're buying equity in companies. You're part owner of that business. And that's one of the greatest things about this country that's better than any other country, is you can go out and say, I'm a part owner of Apple Computer or Home Depot or what have you. And that's a great thing.
Let me be devil's advocate for a moment. Let me take the side of those people who say, okay, this gulf between the wealthy and the so-called poor in this country is it's due to the fact that the wealthy are making too much money. So if I said that, I'm trying to think what my argument might be to support it. How, by the wealthy making too much money, would the poor then somehow suffer? Is it because they get all kinds of tax breaks? Is it because they get breaks in other areas? How would you support that?
The wealthy making too much money, you see, to me, the issue would be if they're making too much money, that's going to help the charities and the churches and the foundations that help support people who are not as fortunate in this country. So I think that's one benefit of the wealthy making too much money. But regardless of how much money you make, it really boils down to what you save. And when you can go out and buy into a mutual fund for $250, everybody has the opportunity to invest their money. But so many people just are not savers in this country. People are the ultimate consumers, and they spend everything they make. And that's the real difference between the haves and the have-nots, because if you're saving money over a period of time, you end up going from one economic structure of base to a higher one because your money's grown for you, and that's the real difference, I think, between the haves and the have-nots.
The other obviously logical step that is, okay, if you believe that, which obviously I think President Obama and a lot of Democrats do, then you say, okay, therefore we must somehow redistribute the income to those people from the wealthy. I mean, that's the one place to logically go. Unfortunately, I think the middle class, if you believe in middle class, upper class, lower class, sounding too much like India, by the way, but if you believe in that, the middle class gets hit on the way by. So how do you redistribute that? The president's always very careful about saying, well, the rich just have to pay a little bit more. But you notice on everything that they do, the rich has to pay a little bit more. I mean, when does a little bit more become too much?
Well, to me, the redistribution happens naturally when entrepreneurs start businesses, hire people, and allow those people within the company to have their benefits, even have ownership in the company, and their wealth grows over time. The problem with redistribution, in my opinion, is you take money from the rich by taxing it, and it's going through the filter of the United States government, which is horrible at spending money.
Yes.
They spend money badly. And so if the money was going through a different filter, which actually benefited the poor and the less blessed, then I think it'd be a more tolerable argument. But the government can't spend our money as good as we can. You
know, it's interesting. I thought it would be really neat if you had these people who actually do this, say, okay, let's do an experiment this week. At the end of the week, we're going to give you your paycheck, and you must give X amount of dollars of your paycheck to somebody else over here that really needs it. I wonder if they would be apt to want to do that.
I think so.
Some people might.
I mean, think about it. If you get up and go to work every day, and you at the end of each month you have your paycheck, but at the end of each month you also have the feeling that, hey, I did something good for someone else because I took my pocket change every day and threw it in a jar and I gave it to a charity every month or every year or whatever. You feel good about yourself, and that's more important than any dollar or figure you make for doing your job, I think. If you feel good that you helped the overall cause, I think that's a good thing. But
here, we got about a minute left. Herein lies the great difference. What you just talked about is something you're doing on your own. I do the same thing. I put all my change in a jar, and it goes to a charity somewhere, and that's fine. And I choose that, and I do it, as I said, anonymously to where I feel it's going to do the most good. However, suppose you do that each month, and I come up and say, thanks for saving the money, Clark. Now I'll decide where that's going to go.
Yeah, that's the whole argument right there. That's a bad system. You save the money. You should decide where it goes. And because you have your favorite causes and charities and situations you run across, definitely.
It's the idea of choice. You can do a better job with your money than I can do with your money, and I'll be a little more liberal with your money than I will be with my own, right?
No doubt, no doubt.
Clark, always a pleasure. Looking forward to meet with you every Friday about this time, and maybe even in between every now and then. Who knows? Have a great weekend. Take care, Clark.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Clark Hodges with us live from Dallas, Texas here this morning on the Morning News. When we come back, Jeff Bonasso is going to check in from New York City on the Christie Bridgegate story this past week and also the Sandy recovery funding. All here on the Gary Sutton Show on News Radio 910 WSBA. WSBA News Time is 1020.